It does say more about the audience, Paul. You know what it says? It says that they don't enjoy Disney Star Wars. It says that Disney Star Wars is going in the wrong direction. It says that they don't understand their audience and that they're catering to an audience that doesn't exist. That's what it says. It does say more about the audience. It says that you've lost the audience.
Basically, everywhere that you read where fans are talking about The Acolyte, it's like 9-1 at least. Negative outlook on The Acolyte versus positive outlook on The Acolyte. Yet the media are spinning it as if the fans have gone wild and are review bombing once again. And we have Grace Randolph. We got Paul Tassi. And this is bullshit, Aaron. It's a bad show. Just get over it.
It's a bad show. It doesn't appeal to Star Wars fans. Like, just accept that and move on. Like, I love to hear how, the vocal minority. And yet the vocal minority is apparently capable of tanking this show, tanking the reviews. Like, there's so few of us out here that don't like this stuff and don't like the direction of Star Wars. And yet we have the ability to make it financially, devastating to Disney to put these things out. Wow, that sounds like a really powerful vocal minority.
Normies are even realizing that Disney Star Wars, for the most part, is shit across the board. And we have a lot of people embarrassing themselves. Grace Randolph probably embarrassed herself the most the past week. She said, I understand why some of you are frustrated with the Star Wars right now. I am by no means trying to tell you how your feelings are wrong. I do feel the loudest voices against The Acolyte are taking on hate speech qualities, and that does not help your cause. As for me, I genuinely like the show. I'm excited for you to see episode 4 on Tuesday, the best of the 4 episodes I saw in advance. So we're talking about hate speech now, simply by saying the script isn't very good, the acting is poor, the set designs aren't very high quality, the pacing is off, and it doesn't feel like Star Wars. That's fucking hate speech now.
Well, I think that you misquoted Grace a little bit in that, that's not exactly what she said. What she said was, I understand why some of you are frustrated with Star Wars right now. That's what she actually said, the way that she said it anyway. Listen, I actually worked with Grace years ago. I enjoyed certain things about Grace, but I will tell you that even back then, Grace was a person who knew what side her bread was buttered on. So, I'm sure that she's on the dole. I'm sure that she's somebody out there who benefits from shilling for Disney. There is no way that anybody with a critical eye could look at this show and say that this is Star Wars, much less that even if it were removed from Star Wars, that it could be a science fiction show that could be successful, amongst the normies and the masses. It's not appreciated. People do not like it. People are not enjoying it. They're being very clear about why they don't enjoy it. And it doesn't have anything to do with the excuses that they're putting out. These same tired excuses about, oh, you just hate diversity. Oh, you just hate people of color being in Star Wars. Blah, 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 blah. You just hate women being, in the lead of Star Wars. Well, last I checked, everybody loved Princess Leia. Rogue One was largely loved by fans. I mean, there were some people that didn't like it, and that's going to be, but by and large, the majority of Star Wars fans, even ones that are in the fandom menace, or even ones that are, not enjoying the current Disney product, they all liked Rogue One. Fallout was a show that was largely praised, including by me. That had a female lead. That had an African-American lead. And yet nobody had a problem with it. So maybe the problem isn't with diversity. Maybe the problem isn't with people of color. Maybe the problem isn't that the fans are racist and bigots and phobes. Maybe the problem is that you are just creating shit product.
Yeah, I don't even think Paramount, if Leslie Headland went up there and pitched this story and said, this is a Star Trek story, they would have been like, this doesn't really meet the quality of Star Trek that we're trying to put out now. We've got the Discovery to really set the bar low on this one, and this doesn't exceed it. Kathleen Kennedy and Disney and Lucasfilm are willing to slap anything, Star Wars on anything, whether it's good entertainment or not. This is absolutely garbage. There are no cool characters in the entire fucking show.
Well, it's like I'm sure for Kathleen Kennedy, it's like Leslie Headland walked in and was like, so listen, we're going to make Star Wars about the occult, and the Force is really going to be, only really understood by lesbian space witches. And Kathleen Kennedy got tears in her eyes and said, yes, this is everything that I want.
This is the Star Wars that I've been looking for.
Exactly right. This will be embraced by everybody.
Grace Randolph's been out there like trashing people, I guess, all week, saying it's hate speech to not like Star Wars The Acolyte, even though basically everyone doesn't like Star Wars The Acolyte. Like I said, if you even go into Reddit forums and stuff like that, which tend to be more pro big companies and stuff like that, even they are destroying it. This is the other thing that Grace Randolph said that I thought was hilarious. I will say that I think it's going to be very hard for Disney to cast upcoming Star Wars projects because this level of hate just isn't worth it, even for up-and-coming actors like poor Lee Jung-jae, coming off of Squid Game, doing a great job on The Acolyte, and for what? I feel bad for the dude from Squid Game. You know, obviously, he wanted the role. He worked really hard. I think he learned English just for this role specifically, and he's the most sad fucking Jedi in the history of the world. He has nothing to work with. This script sucks, and there isn't a good performance, I think, in the entire show. They didn't go out of their way to hire anybody with any quality.
No, and I think that largely he's been appreciated because people are like seeing the effort that he's putting in. They know he has nothing to work with, but they know the fact that he learned English for this role. They see the effort that he's putting in to try and make it work. And I think he comes out like the actresses from Madam Web, where, you know, people had a greater appreciation for them for being in this terrible project and doing the best that they could with it and having a good attitude about it. I think he'll come out golden. I think he'll get more roles. I think that I'll even like buy his action figure just because I think that he looks cool in the role. He won't be the character from The Acolyte in my headcanon. He'll be another Jedi from a real Star Wars story that was overseen by George Lucas and was set during his vision of Star Wars or the expanded universe. But that guy can certainly be in my action figure collection because I like his look. I like what he's trying to do. The little scenes that I've seen with him, it looks like he's really putting in the effort. So yeah, I'm down. I'm down with him continuing to have a great career after this. So I think he'll be fine. I think Leslie Headland's wife will continue to get roles as long as Leslie Headland is in charge, despite the fact that she's not very good. I think that Amanda Stenberg's Identity will get her a couple more roles before it just kind of peters out. And I think that let's see, is there anybody else in there?
Well, you got the lady from The Matrix, Carrie-Anne Moss.
Oh, she's fine. She's fine. Even this can't. She's got a legacy.
I don't understand why any actress would want to take a role in Star Wars. We've seen it with the sequel trilogy. You are not allowed to be charismatic. You're not allowed to have emotions. You could only be stoic if you are a female lead character in Star Wars. We saw it in Ahsoka. What's the defining characteristic of every female in that show? And there's a lot of them. Stoic, never having emotions. Guess what the defining characteristic of Master Indara is? Stoic, like no emotions whatsoever. Same thing with Master Venestra or whatever her name is, Leslie Headland's girlfriend. She's very stoic and has no emotions. There's nothing to do here. There's literally no role to act. You just sit there with no emotions on your face and you say lines as boringly as possible. That's what you do in Star Wars, especially if you're a female these days.
Well, here's the thing, Wes. Sometimes as an actor and actress, you just got to make a boat payment. So you just cash a check. You come in, you only got like 2 days of work and then you're out and you get a nice little paycheck. This show cost $180 million that they're willing to admit to. We know that we're going to find out in like a year, 2 years that it cost far more than that. And the marketing, they're going to lose their asses on this. So yeah, as an actor, get in there, get your money, man. Like, look, Star Wars is so small now that it can't damage your career the way that it did, say, a Hayden Christensen. Star Wars was so big that if it was perceived that, your performance wasn't great or the movie wasn't great, it could really hurt you. It can't hurt you anymore because nobody watches. That would be like saying that the actors that were on Willow are going to be damaged by that show. Nobody saw it.
I can't believe this show actually cost $180 million because I don't see where it went. It certainly didn't go into the screenwriters. I think Leslie Headland wrote it herself. It certainly didn't go into hiring really awesome effects people because the aliens that are doing practical effects look plastic. They don't look anything close to being real. The practical effect aliens in the 1977 movie look more realistic than the aliens in this one.
The Halloween masks in the cantina were better.
Yes. And some of the sets don't look bad, but they don't look spectacular either. The CGI stuff isn't off the charts or anything. I don't know where they blew $180 million in this fucking show.
What really bothers me about kind of like the vision of Star Wars under Disney is that so many of these planets are just like backwater, like everything's just backwater. And it's like, this is a big galaxy. There's more than just Coruscant. There's other worlds out there that have to have built up and have great metropolitan areas and things like that we could be seeing. But understand that's expensive. It's not as easy as just throwing together a mud hut and throwing some greebles on it that make it look Star Warsy. It's just part of the reason that this is like just so uninteresting. The galaxy in the hands of Dave Filoni, who is a hack, is just so boring and uninteresting and just doesn't have any imagination. And the one thing that you can say for Lucas, whether, we talk about his inability to direct actors and his bad dialogue and, things like that, he was still able to create ideas and worlds that fired the imagination. And when he would bring writers in, real writers from the expanded universe, and that would take on these novels and things like that, they would take the concepts that he came up with and they would build on them and make them really interesting. I think that I've said it before, but the biggest difference that I can illustrate for you guys, go and read Karen Travis's Mandalorian novels, the Republic Commando novels, and the ones that took place afterwards when Jason Solo turned to the Sith. All of the Mandalorian culture that she built up, so much more intricate and interesting than the bullshit that Dave Filoni gave us. He tossed out everything good and just gave us his version of it. And it's such insipid, low-level garbage. And even the Ahsoka show. It's like, yeah, could you try to be Lord of the Rings more?
Well, certainly the reaction to a lot of these Star Wars shows has been poor, but The Acolyte is taking it to another level. This is what Paul Tassi from Forbes.com said. The Acolyte quickly became the lowest audience-rated Star Wars project besides the infamous holiday special. Now its former 33% score has dipped below the special's 20% score and is all the way down to 15%. At a certain point, this is just absurd, and it says a lot more about the viewers than it does about the quality of the show itself, which has barely even gotten started, now just 3 episodes in. No, I am not going to entertain a debate that this is not review bombing.
No, you can't entertain that debate because you would lose, Paul Tassi. The only reaction to anything Paul Tassi has to say in this article is the meme of The Rock going, "Shut up, bitch." That's the only thing that we should be saying to Paul Tassi. Yeah, you know what? It does say more about the audience, Paul. You know what it says? It says that they don't enjoy Disney Star Wars. It says that Disney Star Wars is going in the wrong direction. It says that they don't understand their audience and that they're catering to an audience that doesn't exist. That's what it says. It does say more about the audience. It says that you've lost the audience. It says that they're not coming back. And it says that Disney Star Wars will continue to shrink until it is either just a small niche product, which they've already made it because it's just a television category on a failing streaming service, or it'll shrink to the point that it just disappears and it's radioactive for 20 years before they try to revive it again, or before somebody, they sell it off so that somebody else can buy it. That's what it says about the audience. That's what it says about Disney. That's what it says about Star Wars. And you know what else it says, Paul? It says that you're a shill bitch.
And I think it's a valid debate to be had. What's worse, the Star Wars holiday special, which is so infamous, George Lucas never wants to see it again, and The Acolyte. The Acolyte's a serious show. That holiday special, not so serious, but at least had some charm. You at least had Carrie Fisher singing a song to the original Star Wars, like
drunk off her ass.
Yeah, it's just really
Harrison,
weird.
Well, you saw that was the moment that Harrison Ford's enthusiasm for Star Wars died. That's the moment where he became like, I don't want to talk about this crap. I don't give a shit.
So at least you got that. You got the first really appearance, at least speaking wise, of Boba Fett in the cartoon that was in there. We got Life Day, Chewbacca's Wookiee wife in a fucking apron, and what was his son's name?
Lumpy.
We got Lumpy. So at least there's something there that was charming.
You got his grandfather watching VR porn. That's such a weird. It's charming and it's cheesiness.
Charming or interesting or anything Star Warsy to The Acolyte. So I think it is a conversation or a debate that warrants merit.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that they should just be glad that anybody's talking about Star Wars in any context at this point, because it could have just been summarily ignored like Ahsoka was, or like at least people are talking about it, right? Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, but it's being viewed less. I think the viewership numbers are down significantly from Ahsoka, which wasn't successful.
No. It was like, as much as Disney touts like it's the best debut, streaming debut of a live action show this year on Disney Plus. It's like, yeah, what else debuted? Oh, Echo. Great job beating Echo.
A show that apparently was less wanted than The Acolyte. That really says more about Echo than it does about The Acolyte. Boom! I got you, Paul Tassi.
You got it.
Turned that some bitch around on you.
That's right. Suck it, Paul.
This is his final statements on the subject. The 15% score is embarrassing. Not for the show, but for those review bombing it to a frankly laughable degree. I'm not even The Acolyte's biggest fan, as the first 2 episodes I didn't love, though I thought episode 3 was more interesting, but the worst Star Wars project by any order of magnitude in the history of the series, and it just so happens to be the one mostly starring black women. This whole situation is a parody of the modern toxic fan base of the series, and if you want to disguise it as being upset about canon, then it shows a distinct lack of understanding of both the material of the show and the wider universe. It's the first one that's been terrible across the board. There's not a redeeming quality about The Acolyte, and that is the problem itself, because you went out of your way to hire somebody that doesn't like Star Wars. You went out of your way to hire somebody that doesn't appreciate what George Lucas built. And guess what? She went out of her way to make Star Wars look like a joke. And that's what the problem with the series is. It's the writing, it's the creative control, it's the overall direction led by Leslie Headland and Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm and Disney and Bob Iger and Paul Tassi and Grace Randolph. You are all getting what you wanted. The big shit sandwich that you ordered up on the fucking menu, because this thing is absolutely trash. It's not absurd that people are reviewing it to a low degree because it is a singularly terrible television show. That happens to be Star Wars.
Well, you know, if Paul Tassi can set which arguments he'll entertain and which ones he won't, I think that we can also say that we won't entertain any arguments from a punk shill bitch like Paul Tassi. So I think that, you know, as he has that right, so do we. You're absolutely right, Wes. It's just the fact that people are not enjoying the show. And is there some review bombing? Absolutely. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's people that haven't watched it that are going in there and leaving poor reviews because they're like, this isn't what I want out of my Star Wars. And they're not even going to entertain the idea of giving it a watch. I'm sure that that's happening. But you know what else happens? Review fluffing from people like Paul Tassi, who will go in and just say that because it ticks off some boxes that they like politically or they like as activists, that it's a great show and that you should watch it, and that anybody who doesn't enjoy the narrative is obviously an istinophobe and this and that and the other. You know, the fact of the matter is, the majority of people that view these things don't have a political dog in this fight. They just want to be entertained. And when they tune into The Acolyte, they're not entertained. And that's reflected in the scores. And so once again, that says more about Disney's complete misunderstanding of their audience than it does the fans that are reviewing it.
And I have watched a lot of the Star Wars projects, and even the ones that I haven't liked from Disney, and I haven't liked a lot of them. But the stuff that I've been disappointed by, I can at least say there was an idea there that should have been successful. There were ideas in Ahsoka that should have been successful. Bringing the live action Rebels actors in there, the story of Ahsoka, bringing in Thrawn and all that kind of stuff should have worked. It just didn't because there was bad direction.
Bad direction and bad writing. Dave Filoni can't write Thrawn. Thrawn is too smart a character for a dullard like Dave Filoni to write and to envision and to, you know, act out properly. You go and you read the Timothy Zahn novels and you read the Thrawn that's there, like night and day difference from what Dave Filoni is able to accomplish. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's no problem. If you go watch the sequel trilogy, it's not well constructed. They clearly had no plan on how to get to the end, and the Rian Johnson stuff in the middle really threw everything off. But there are good ideas in there. You know, the idea of a stormtrooper breaking ranks and joining up with the good guys is a cool concept. You know, there are some things in there that ultimately should have worked. They just happen to not work. I can't tell you a single idea or concept in The Acolyte that felt like it was a good idea but just wasn't achieved. I think it was all bad, and that's why it's being discussed as probably the worst Star Wars project of all times. Probably worse than fucking, what is it, Ewoks? What's the Ewoks movie?
Caravan of Courage?
Caravan of Courage.
It's worse than the Droids cartoon, which I know some people have some fondness.
I like the Droids cartoon. It was good.
Nah, I can't go with you on that. No, even when I was 8. You know what's funny is when I watched the Ewok movies as a kid, I was like you when you didn't get to see Empire Strikes Back. I was like, what a jit. Because I looked at it and I was like, there's no Ewok village. There was no Chief Chirpa, no Logray, no Poplu, none of the other Ewoks that I'd come to like. You know, it was just like, who's this family with Wilford Brimley? And and you go back and you watch that. Wilford Brimley was born old. That was in the 80s, and he did not change. He just stayed the same. He was a constant. Yeah,
but there was nothing to work with because there's nothing from the creative voices that had anything but disdain and disgust for Star Wars, because maybe it's a white male brand. Maybe that's why they hate it so much, and it's disgusting.
Well, if you go back to, what was it, like 2016, 2018, somewhere in there, there was an article that I think it's been pulled down now. I think it was by What Culture, by Screen Rant, one of those sites. But it was Kathleen Kennedy saying, we don't need to cater to the male audience anymore. How'd that work out for you, Kathleen? How's that working out? How's catering to an audience that doesn't exist working out for Star Wars? By the way, she could have retired. She could have retired and had a good legacy, much like Bob Iger. You could have gotten out while the getting was good. But instead, in your hubris, you decided to try and transform something into your own image. The way that you tried to transform Star Wars into Kathleen Kennedy's image is the same way that Bob Iger has tried to transform Disney into his image. And now the Emperor has no clothes and your legacy is ruined. Bob Iger will go down as a failure who ruined Disney. You will go down as a failure who ruined Lucasfilm. You destroyed Star Wars. You destroyed Indiana Jones. You destroyed Willow. I'm sure that if you redo the Radioland murders, you'll destroy that as well. Anything that you touch turns to crap. That is your legacy. Congratulations. You've earned every bit of it.
I cannot wait for her to be the subject of a second South Park episode. It ought to be fantastic. Certainly more to chew on now that we've gotten the Acolyte out of the way. If you enjoy the conversation going on between Aaron and I, this is only 20 minutes of a 2.5 hour podcast. Goes up every single week on Thinking Critical Patreon. One of those awesome benefits you get from supporting us on Patreon. We give you great podcasts with the Geek Fix. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the video description for the entire episode.